Viewers, good evening. Thank you for joining us on India Upfront. Today, the Waqf Bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha, a pivotal and foundational step towards achieving parity in the governance of religious affairs. Parity is the key word here. The bill proposes more stringent regulations and monitoring mechanisms that could curb corruption and ensure efficient operation of the Waqf boards. On the floor of the House, Minority Affairs Minister thundered that the NDA had to bring these amendments because UPA government could not do it. He asserted many leaders in the opposition have privately told me that the state Waqf boards had turned into a mafia, a land grab mafia. His words, not mine. The opposition, however, sees it as an attempt to consolidate power within the government, an attempt to diminish the autonomy of the Waqf boards, and an attempt to interfere with the functioning of the mosques. However, none of those arguments have been substantiated with facts, with opposition benches choosing to rely instead on rhetoric and fear-mongering, using as an armor what they deem an impregnable shield, religion and persecution.
आप देश को बांटने का काम कर रहे हैं, जोड़ने का काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। आप दुश्मन हैं मुसलमानों के, उसका सबूत ये बिल है।
ये बिल जो इंट्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, ये अध्यक्ष महोदय बहुत सोची समझी राजनीति के तहत हो रहा है। वक्फ बोर्ड में गैर मुस्लिम को शामिल करने का औचित्य क्या बनता है?
कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि जनता इन हुकूक के लिए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को बचाने के लिए दोबारा सड़कों पर आ जाएगी।
आप वक्फ बोर्ड की प्रॉपर्टियों को खुर्द-बुर्द कराने की जो साजिश लोग कर रहे हैं, उन साजिशों को बल देने का काम कर रहे हैं।
There was an attempt in the country that to make the country as a Hindu Rashtra, which has been rejected by the people of this country.
कहाँ से ये मुसलमान विरोधी है? कौन सा इसका कानून मुसलमान विरोधी बताता है?
इस बिल का समर्थन कीजिए, करोड़ों लोगों का दुआ मिलेगा।
Let's try and put this entire debate into context before we open this up. What is the attack from the opposition? The opposition has said that the centre is bringing in changes for communal reasons. Now, the question to ask the opposition, to the doubters, is how will Hindus benefit from the amendments, the proposed amendments in the Waqf Act? The next attack by the opposition is that the government is interfering with Muslim institutions. Viewers, the question is, should misuse of authority go unchecked? Because it has gone unchecked for so long. The next attack by the opposition on the Modi government is that this is a bill to snatch away land belonging to mosques. The question that comes to mind is law that makes land deals transparent. How's that a bid to snatch land? The next attack by the doubters, the opposition, is that the bill is specialized for Maharashtra, Haryana election. They are saying that the timing is suspect. Just happens to come into parliament ahead of impending elections in these states. Now the question is, did the Congress government bring earlier amendments, at least 3 in number, due to polls? Was that driving them then? The attack is that the unilateral decision will be made. Muslims have not been consulted. Now, there have been multiple meetings, wider consultation that the government says with stakeholders. And so this question, why ignore the exhaustive consultation data? The DMK has been in particular saying that the bill targets a particular religious group. Isn't it a bit rich coming from the DMK? Because the TN government, the Tamil Nadu government, excuse me, the state government not only controls Hindu temples, but also religious endowments. They will have to answer on that. The next attack, viewer, is that the centre is taking excessive interest in religious matters. The question to ask is, but bill is based on report of the Congress-constituted Sachar panel that they swear by, that they cite at the drop of a hat. Why? And the other question is, the bigger question is, more fundamental question is, why did the UPA government, Congress and other stakeholders over the years not follow the recommendation of the Sachar panel? So these are the questions that set up the debate. Let's open this up. Syed Zafar Islam, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Dr. Ranganathan needs no introduction. Tushar Gupta, political analyst. Mr. Sarvanan, spokesperson of the DMK. Muhammad Adil Hassan, spokesperson of the AIMIM. Vivek Silas is the national spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Lokesh Jindal completes this panel, political analyst. Dr. Ranganathan, we've had many discussions on this. What is essentially a move to reform the Waqf Act has been blocked. And what is the ruse, excuse, pretext, religion that you are going after Muslims? Stop.
To my fellow panelists, I have a couple of things to say. It's a very important discussion. I'm glad we are having it. Look, only three things are certain in an Indian's life. Let's get this straight. Death, taxes, and that knowingly or unknowingly, he ends up walking every day on Waqf land. 77% of Delhi is supposed to be on Waqf land. Waqf Act is a parallel government being run. It has its own legislature in the form of board. It has its own executive in the form of a surveyor, and it has its own judiciary in the form of a tribunal. In fact, Waqf, I would say, is one of the 8 reasons why Hindus, forget about Muslims, Hindus are 8th-class citizens in their own country. Now, I want to say this is very important. Yes, it is good of the government to bring in amendments, but if India is to be saved from becoming an Islamic republic, then hear this. Amendments are not enough. This entire act has to be abrogated, because I ask you, is there a similar act for documenting, selling, purchasing properties that are related to Hindus or Christians or Sikhs or any other denomination? Why have a separate clause or an act exclusively for a particular community? That itself is discrimination, not only there and then, it is also discrimination for the other communities. Now I tell you, there have been some amendments, they are good, but they don't go far enough because they don't touch something that needs to be touched, and they are draconian clauses of the Waqf. So, for example, mandatory registration of Waqf property now is with district collector office. Okay, that's good. But that doesn't stop the discrimination happening against Hindus. Number 2, government properties identified as Waqf properties before or after the Act's amendment will now be not be considered Waqf property. That is good. But it also then entails a long legal process that the state has to fight. Number 3, this is important because it takes care of the draconian Section 40. Now, the district collector will decide whether a property is Waqf or on government land. The bill also removes provisions allowing for a property to be considered Waqf based on oral declaration. Good. But that was blatant discrimination. But, for example, Section 28 has not been amended as far as I am concerned. It gives power to order a collector. Section 8 says the state has to pay for the Waqf survey. Pranesh, this is in direct violation of Article 27 of our Constitution that says no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes, the proceeds of which are specifically appropriated in payment of expenses for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious denomination. Section 107 says Act 36 of 1963, Statute of Limitation will not apply. Statute of Limitation doesn't apply for recovery of Waqf property. Section 101 says the survey commissioner, members of the board, every officer, every auditor of the board, and every other person appointed to discharge any duties imposed on him by this act shall be deemed to be public servant, as is understood by the Indian Penal Code. So now Maulvis will be constituted as public servants, and you know what happens when you touch literally or figuratively any public servant. These are clauses that are absolutely draconian. Forget about being helpful for Muslims. They are antagonistic and discriminated against other religions and people of other communities. Waqf Act, I'm sorry, has to go.
Mr. Saravanan, you know, you're erudite, sir. You know, every time we have an informed debate.
The BJP...
No, Mr. Saravanan, I'll come to you, sir. You know, but Dr. Ranganathan has asked several questions of the BJP. He believes, while the opposition is saying that this bill is anti-Muslim, Dr. Ranganathan is saying that this is not strong enough. You have to have a stronger reform. And why has this taken so long? So I want to quickly bring in Mr. Zafar Islam, and then I'm coming to you, sir. Mr. Zafar Islam, what would you tell Dr. Ranganathan, who you just heard?
See, I do not want to comment on Dr. Ranganathan because he is making a statement on the bill which has been introduced in the parliament. So I will speak as a party spokesperson. I will only speak about the bill which has been introduced and what is the intent behind it. As he rightly, some of the observation he has made that yes, it is being run in a manner that where there is no transparency. I think it should be managed in a manner that the beneficiary is defined in this, because it is not that the state government, or for that matter, government has given this piece of land or the property to the Waqf board. It is the Muslim community, and the member of the Muslim community has donated to the Muslim, for the welfare of the Muslim community. So no one can claim that it has come from X or Y or Z. It is the property of the Muslim community which is being donated by a Muslim for the welfare of the Muslim community, and the beneficiary should only be the Muslim member of the Muslim community. Like, for instance, you create a foundation, and the foundation is only defined the objective, based on that objective it works. It doesn't, the government doesn't own this foundation, but within the framework of this entire setup, the law of the land is more important. That is why this legislation has been, or the bill has been introduced for the amendment. What is important for all of us to understand, that there are only few people, maybe 200, 300, 400 people actually, like a mafia, managing the Waqf properties, which is the strongest objection of the government, because the objective of the Waqf is not to be managed and the beneficiary should be a handful of people, but the ordinary Muslim, the weaker section within the Muslim community should be, because that is the purpose. Like if I donate my property to the Waqf, it doesn't belong to the government, it doesn't belong to anyone else. It belongs to the Waqf. It is like a foundation. It's a collective foundation of the Muslim community, where the benefit should go to only the Muslim community, member of the Muslim community, those Muslim members who are actually the needy ones.
Okay, here but among other criticisms, Syed Zafar Islam, among other criticisms, sir, and we will hear from the members of the opposition. 1 minute, sir, 1 minute. Among other criticism, one is that why are non-Muslims part of the panel? But before you answer that, I want to bring in some of the others. Mr. Sarvanan, you go first.
Yes. Yeah. See, that is the fundamental question. Our leader in the parliament, Madam Kanimozhi, asked this question. Will there be a Muslim or a Christian in a Hindu board? Is it possible? This is the sentiment that has been expressed among everybody. And where does the union government have the legislative competence to enact a law which is about land or about religious endowments? They don't have the legislative competence. It is only the state governments which have the power to manage the lands, and it is a direct interference in the federal structure of our constitution. The BJP, ever since it has come to power, has always done this, trying to usurp the powers of the state government in the garb of, I am trying to do this, I am trying to do that. That apart, another important feature is that they say that the collector will decide all these things. But who is the collector to decide a land dispute? It has to ultimately be decided by a court. That is why any civil dispute, any land dispute, the executive authorities cannot decide. Only a tribunal or only a quasi-judicial thing can decide on that. So this is also violative of whatever we have been following so long. And the most important aspect of this Waqf thing is that the entire thing, we know all the Waqf is coming from donations from the believers. And how can the government try to say, no, we will govern this? It is not possible.
Can I ask you, sir? Can I ask you something? Mr. Sarvanan, 1 minute, sir. 1 minute.
In Tamil Nadu,
yeah, answer one question before we move on.
I have anticipated what you are going to ask me. Pranesh, I have anticipated what you are asking going to ask me.
Tell me.
You are saying, oh, the state of Tamil Nadu is controlling. Yes, controlling the Hindu religious and charitable endowments. How is it allowed? Why are you allowing this? This has been answered several times.
Yeah, now that you've anticipated the question, please answer it also.
Yes. I will answer that. Allow me to answer. Yeah. See, when it comes to the Hindu temples, all of them were built by the kings from the taxes collected by the people. It belongs to the people. And when we got independence, everything got transferred to the state. This is the fundamental difference between the Hindu temples and others. So let us not compare these two and break our brains. Let us not do that.
That is not an explanation,
India
Mr.
is a secular
Sarvanan.
country.